I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, if you can please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan,
Here.
Counselor Lavin,
I am here.
Counselor Peeler,
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Here.
Counselor Gilat,
Here.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Here.
Counselor Morocco, Counselor Whitfield,
Here.
Mayor Valentino.
Here. Thank you. Next, we have a proclamation. Whereas throughout our history, America has been protected by patriots who made great sacrifices to advance the cause of freedom. The brave members of the United States Armed Forces have answered the call to serve our nation, ready to give all for their country. And whereas, like the heroes before them, today a new generation of men and women are fighting for our freedom around the globe. Their determination, courage, and sacrifice are laying the foundation for a more secure and peaceful world. And whereas the Veterans Day is dedicated to the extraordinary Americans who fought for and preserved our freedom, every member of the United States Armed Forces has earned the lasting gratitude of the American people, and their service and sacrifice will be remembered forever. Now, therefore, I, Steve Valentino, Mayor of the City of Geneva, New York, issues this proclamation to recognize the valor and sacrifice of our veterans and express our appreciation to them for the freedoms we celebrate Veterans Day and every day. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a discussion on parking.
And I will kick that off. And this is to get some goals set for next year and move some of the questions and concerns that have come forward. So there's been some discussion from members of council as well as community members regarding parking in our parking lots, parking on our streets, and how traffic moves through some of these areas. We've received questions, complaints, and concerns as well on trash in parking lots. And prior to staff taking a big stab at this, we've started looking at the two major codes that are in regards to parking. Article 4, parking, standing, and stopping, and Article 5, parking meters. Both of those articles can be found on eCode. They need some updating. We have things in there like where permits are, what streets are permit parking, which many of our staff said we didn't even know that we did that or when we did that, as well as what the allowances are from curbs, those kinds of things. So there's many, many updates in these. I know that there's some concerns on council of pieces of parking legislation that you want to address as we do these updates. And prior to us diving in very deep on that, we want to hear from you what those parking concerns are, if there's locations those concerns are at. One of the pieces to this is about 2 years ago, we also went through and did all of our signage because we put in place in the ordinance language the winter parking ordinance. So winter parking only goes into effect if there's a winter weather event. And so we want to make sure that all of this ordinance language aligns with current practices as well as future practices that we would like to see. So that's why we want to have this discussion tonight, is to give us some of those ideas. From there, staff can then do things like work with New York State DOT, potentially if there needs to be speed studies, if there needs to be further follow-up with legal on how we enforce some of these things, because again, not all of the roads that travel through the city are actually city roads, so we have to look at all of those pieces.
Thank you, City Manager. So the floor is open for discussion on parking. We have been provided 27 pages on parking, which is a little challenging to review. I rely a lot on the experts for this, but does anybody have comments or wants to open the discussion on parking? Councilor Brennan, please.
Well, all right. I didn't memorize it, but I thought about it for a minute or two. There's a variety of misspellings, for example. We'll fix that some other day. But I wanted to bring up one particular I don't know how far staff is going with this, what, if you will, this process. Is it going to be every single street that was mentioned in that chapter?
So that's a piece of it, is we want to, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it as thorough as possible.
Okay.
Because the other thing that you'll find in that chapter is it'll mention no parking next to this landmark. Some of those landmarks no longer exist.
Uh-huh.
Or some of the alleys that are mentioned are no longer alleys. And so if we're going to do it, it's going to take several months to go really all the way through and bring you a complete package. What I'm looking for more from you is general direction of, we won't want to see parking in this area, or this area is a concern, a safety concern, or we think this is a safety concern. If we think something's a safety concern, then we can look at how many motor vehicle incidents or accidents have happened in that area, what is the data on that, and then how do we move that forward?
That was one of my thoughts too, and that is this, I presume someone or several people from the police department might be involved in this overview.
So it will be a whole staff, so it'll include police department,
All right.
DPW, planning and economic development. It'll include our partners at the state, county, and other levels. It'll be a complete review, similar to a zoning update.
Okay.
But parking has been an issue that members of council have brought forward, not just there, but also in our parking lots, because our parking lots are not always all owned by the city as well. So how do we define that and make sure that that's much clearer for everyone?
And lastly, how best to inform you of any concerns or questions that we might have? Would you like us to just email you?
You can email me, or if there's broad areas that you want to discuss tonight that you want to focus on, then we'll start with that.
I don't have any broad areas right at the moment, but I had specific things, and I think I'll just do that. I'll email you the little things that I know about the matter.
Council Petropoulos?
Well, from what it sounds like, we're talking about maybe a little more than just parking. You mentioned speed. You mentioned the state. I know for a fact I've gotten a couple of complaints from John Street that's like a drag strip between Genesee and Maine. The state needs to set a speed limit, and they know we have 15-mile-an-hour speed limits or 20-mile speed limits posted elsewhere in the city. So in that general Ward 5 area, a lot of people are speeding through those side streets. And other things that have been brought up, one thing in addition to others have brought up is we need, and this is the state probably, we need a flashing arrow on that left turn to Castle Street. All right, we can't wait a whole light cycle. There's only room for 3, maybe 4 cars, and the only way you can even get into that lane if there's no more than 3 cars waiting for the light. There's a flashing arrow on Lake Street. Why not on Castle? That's the gateway to downtown, so that's another concern. And I think that's parking-wise. My only observation is that some of the downtown parking lots are way underutilized, like the one by the dog run, and the state might own that parking lot where the state building is. I don't know if the city does or not, but nobody parks there, and that's just as convenient to downtown as any other lot. So I know we had a parking study, 8 years ago or thereabouts, and I don't know what came of that, but so these are just some of the things I will want to bring up. Oh, the last thing I remember now. There's the walk, don't walk sign. Apparently there isn't one crossing Main Street on Castle by the library. I have one gentleman that keeps on telling me, and I have sent something into the complaint line about it. He almost got hit 3 times. I can only imagine others might have too. It's the Queens Boulevard of Geneva, I guess. So that's something I'm going to definitely put on paper and email you guys. Thanks.
Council Lavin?
I just wanted to repeat something I brought before, is that I think the South Main Street at the colleges is an extremely dangerous place with cars parked on both sides there. And I know it's a state road. It's probably more complicated, but unless we have to wait for a kid to get killed before we improve that area, that the crossings and the parking on both sides, I think, should be visited. Having it on one side of the street would open up at least the ability that our garbage trucks to get to our dumps without threatening the lives of college kids going down to the boathouse. But also the crossings themselves, all the way down Main Street, where I think the changes in our regional culture for weekend wine tours and things. South Main Street from Castle all the way out to Cemetery Hollow is a speed zone, and the crossings are not well enough marked and visible enough that people actually stop when people are trying to cross the street. I think some improvements can be made to the markings on the crossing, but the most prominent one is the parking on both sides of South Main Street at the colleges is just waiting for a phone call home to some parent in Connecticut whose kid didn't make it across. And I think we can improve that.
So this is a fairly large task, and I compliment staff over this because, and I see you, Council Peeler, I'll get you in a
Sorry.
second. Your hand wasn't raised early enough for
No,
me
I
to
thought we were
start.
going round robin. I didn't realize.
Well, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in.
Please.
There's a lot of challenges, and I think, looking at this ordinance throughout the cycle of my career here, we have a overall speed limit in the city of Geneva, and to isolate certain streets, to reduce certain speed limits on certain streets is a major challenge with signage. This council has brought forward a variety of different signage challenges, and I think that's one of the things when we talked about the one-way street that didn't have the proper signage, or we think the signage could be better. I think there's a lot of challenges there. I hope this doesn't turn into a 2-year event like the zoning ordinance change.
6 years.
I would hope that it would be something a little more digestible, but because there's a level of complexity, I think that involves not only the city, involves the state, and involves different entities. It's tough for me to kind of go through this ordinance and give you specific direction. So I'm going to rely heavily on staff and their expertise to review this. And whatever support we can provide to you, whatever resources we can provide to you, just let us know, because I know it's not an easy task to overhaul. Councilor Peeler.
So, everyone that has had some good feedback, and I don't have any opposition to any of it. It's all very constructive, including what Councilor Levin and Jim and the mayor has said. I have a little concern, and that is that this seems like it's a task that's quite prolific. And I don't know how it's a priority. And if it is a priority, then let's have it explained, because I don't know of what's happening in our community that's triggering this type of high priority that's going to have staff kind of work very hard on this. And I don't know of any parking feedback that I've received from residents or businesses that think this is like the tip of the spear as far as priority goes. And I remember the DRI project study that said that the DRI was going to improve parking, and then it was going to add, I don't know, a dozen spots or 14 spots or something like that. So the DRI project should have finished with us being on the plus side of parking. So I just want to make sure that if we dive into this with man hours, and it's gobbling up man hours, I hope it's man hours that are really needed for it, and it's not best spent, like kind of, what's the word, like first things first type of thing. Yep. That's it. That's so I have concern, and I want to see good data that says that this is something that we should really devote labor to.
Great concern. I think the city manager is interested in responding.
Absolutely. So this is definitely going to take time, energy, and a lot of focus from staff as we started to dive into it. Some of it was from questions from counselors and some of the concerns that you're hearing tonight. To change those pieces, so there's 2 things we could do. We could change it piecemeal and let the misspellings stay and all of the pieces. That's what we've been doing. We've kind of just added on. But what happens is when you just add on, it's not a clear ordinance. So if we want to continue to improve some of these things that you're talking about, then I would say council would need to say, yes, this is a priority. We understand that some other things are not going to be able to be completed, and we're going to do hopefully a strategic thinking session next month with the council and staff. But if this is a priority and continues to be a priority, then we are going to have to put the staff resources. So I appreciate you bringing that
Thank
forward.
you. I don't see this as a major priority. We've had 125 years without doing this, and it just seems like we probably have other priorities, like, taking care of some flooding areas and improving our sewers and, streets and infrastructure that's immediate, like real kind of infrastructure stuff. That's my, unless there's something that's presented to me that changes my opinion with hard data, then that's my initial response.
Councilor Petropoulos.
Well, echoing what Councilor Peeler just said, my thought is that parking in and of itself, I haven't heard anything about parking issues. Nobody's complaining. We don't got enough safety. If it concerns safety, I would make that the priority because we don't want to make the headlines because something happened. For example, Councilor Lavin's got a point about 14 South. I could say the same about 14 North. Just as an example, Canandaigua's got these little flashing signs that lets you see from a distance somebody's crossing. I mean, I don't know, that probably, if that's the state, hey, good, let's see a sign. On the other hand, walk, don't walk signs, that may be the city, that may be the state, but it all comes down to safety first. I would make that the priority and not worry too much about parking, unless, again, they're a landmark, it just needs to be cleaned up, and that shouldn't take too much time to do.
Okay, well, no further comments. I think we put this in the parking lot and talk about it in December, and we'll establish whether it's a priority or not.
We'll put it in the parking lot.
I said that, yeah, parking lot, and I didn't mean that as a pun. I apologize. What was interesting is in Canandaigua with the flashing lights. I really like those, Councilor Petropoulos. I was talking to the mayor, and it was great when they first initiated it, but it's become numb to the regular travelers in that area. When they see those flashing lights, they're less attentive to it as they used to be when they first came out. But for me, I did like them, and it made me slow down and definitely pay attention. Just human nature. Okay, next moving on the agenda is a presentation for the quarter three financial updates presented by our city comptroller.
Thank you, Mayor. So up on the screen here, I have the quarterly financial update. I wanted to kind of just bring everybody up to speed. I touched on it during a budget work session, but some of the numbers have been updated since, and then I've also added water and sewer. So what we're looking at here is just the general fund. Some of the changes are we did receive our third quarter sales tax and occupancy tax, which, as you can see, we're getting very close with sales tax and where we need to be for the year. Occupancy tax, we've already exceeded our budgeted amount, which is always good news. And there's a couple, so if you look at like state federal aid, you can see there's a good chunk still remaining. No concerns there. It's very typical that we would receive a majority of those funds at the end of the year. Usually, I wish it was early December. It's usually mid to late December. So really the last minute we're getting those funds from the state. Very similar with the retirement, Social Security and health insurance at the expense side on the bottom. Our retirement payment isn't due until December. So those two kind of make up for one another in terms of the percentages. And then one thing I look for is not necessarily the total percent remaining, but what I look for is the behavior of spending versus revenues coming in. So revenues, there's really not a whole lot we can do about them once we've budgeted for the most part. But expenses, we meet with department heads. We try to track those things. We're obviously looking at accounts payable and purchasing on a weekly basis. And so those are the things that I look at in terms of, okay, maybe a department has 80% spending left, but I know they have a big purchase coming up in November. So those are the notes that I keep. Overall, very happy with where the general fund is right now. Very similar to where it was last year at this time. And last year, in looking through the financial statements, we were about as close as you can possibly be to dead on. So very happy with that. And then I've got
Adam, if I can just interrupt you
yes.
for a second on sales tax, just because I want
Sure.
council to be aware. While sales tax projections are going where we projected them, sales tax in Ontario County is down over last year. So year to date, or year over year, it's down. When we built the budget, we projected we projected where we're at, and we're hitting that mark, and we're doing well, but sales tax is down in the county.
How much? Single digits?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a relatively small percent,
Yep.
but we're used to seeing that grow. So it's a
Right.
concern, but in the past, it's always been a very conservatively budgeted item. So I don't have any concerns that we don't get where we need to go this year.
When we, sorry to interrupt.
No, go
Do you want me
ahead.
to ask the question later?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So when we get those type of sales tax estimates, I'm assuming there are smarter people that deal with that calculus. Do they know the causes of it? Like what sectors are being hit? Like what's down? Is it boats? Is it cars? Is it bread? Is it, right? Is it
No.
retail?
Yeah.
Is it homes?
So that's not
There's no
something
sales tax
that's,
on homes.
it's not, it's not something that's
Cars.
given to us
Could be cars.
as a part of our report from the
Okay.
county. I think, in the past, there's been, like NICOM will do little bulletins and say, okay, sales tax is down in this many counties in New York State. Here's what we're seeing, that kind of thing. So if it's something that is happening more often and there's a majority there, you'll see a lot more of those kind of reports and bulletins go out. I haven't seen any as of yet. My take on it would be that it was a very small drop, and so they're looking at that, but not a huge concern at this point.
For our budget reasons, it's not a huge piece.
Correct.
Just something that we should realize. We might not have a,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we certainly pay very close attention to it, and we talk to our peer cities around, not just in Ontario County, but other across the state, to see what's going on and if we can kind of pick up on any trends that way.
And it's not just Ontario County that's down, it's across the
Correct.
state that it's down. And so that's the piece that we just have to watch, because we do budget conservatively. Sales tax is one of those elastic revenues, so it expands and it contracts, and so you have to be careful when you budget for it.
Councilor Brennan?
Would you tell me again why the revenues are lagging, that line, please?
Yep, let me see. Which one?
The bottom line.
The other revenues?
Quote, other revenues.
Yep. So a lot of things that go into there are our interfund transfers. So it
Oh.
would be money that was allocated from fund balance, equipment reserve. So purchases for equipment reserve that haven't happened yet or we haven't done the accounting for it yet. Typically, it's something we do at the end of the year once it's all done.
Okay.
So again, it's one of those things that appears to be this glaring issue. From an accounting standpoint, it's all there. It just happens on 12/31.
Understood, thanks.
Oh, I think you guys make it look like a problem, then you solve it at the end of the year, then you're like, good job.
Yep. Just got to pay attention. We'll do it again
Right,
next
you gotta
year.
keep an eye on it.
So then I just put a couple. I just did a chart for the revenues and then a chart for the expenses. And what I did was the 24 actual, the 23 actual, and then the 24 budget. So those are in the documents that the council has. I won't go over them much because it's the same as what's in the numbers. It's just a little bit more attractive to look at. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. So this is the water fund. And again, pretty good shape, I would say. Metered sales is our main revenue. So that's your water bills. That's the water bills that everybody talks about. And that revenue there, you'd expect it to be, if it were perfectly even, you'd expect that top number to be 25% remaining. But actually, we're in better shape than that because the third and fourth quarters tend to be the higher ones. They cover summer and fall rather than the winter months. So I don't have any concerns that we won't hit our numbers in the water fund. And then other revenues, Councilor Brennan, same answer to the water fund. It's a fund balance allocation that just happens at the end of the year. What I will do in the future is break that out separately so that you can see, because there are a few other revenues in there, but they're very minor. A majority of that, I think it's maybe 250, something like that, is the fund balance allocation. So a big chunk of it.
Okay.
And then again, the expenses, you've got the water maintenance department, water treatment plant, and then your benefits and your debt service. Debt service is done. That was, very close. Sometimes it's a little bit over, sometimes it's a little bit under. We get those We get that information from Municipal Solutions, who's a company we work with that handles all of our bonding and payments through debt. And again, the retirement payment, same as water, sewer, and general fund, that bill happens in December. So that 30.79% will, by the end of the year, get to where it needs to be. And I've got the, not too exciting. And if anybody wants me to use different colors, just let me know.
Works for me.
Are you
Love the
colorblind?
colors.
Sewer fund, again, sewer charges are the sewer portion of the water bill. Looking really good in sewer. Our about 16% remaining in the revenue line item there, and I expect to well exceed that. And then our other government, the next line item, that is our agreement with the town of Geneva. And so that is based on total budget. There's percentages out of each of those line items in the expense column below. There's a percentage of those that we bill the town for. And this year it happened to be 786 and change is what we budgeted for. The actual turned out to be a little bit more than that. So that's all taken care of. Again, other revenues, fund balance transfer, debt service done, again, very close. And then sewer maintenance, wastewater. You can see in wastewater, there's not a whole lot left. A large chunk of the remaining is the salaries to get through the rest of the year. But a lot of their purchases throughout the year have been purchased. The departments in water and sewer tend to spend more at the beginning and middle of the year so that they have an inventory for when the weather gets bad, and there tends to be more problems. We seem to have more water breaks and sewer issues when it's cold and snowy. And so not sure why that happens, but it just always seems that we need that inventory. So as soon as we have a problem, we will replenish that inventory so we're not stuck in an emergency situation. And that's it for general water and sewer funds. One other thing I wanted to mention was we are investing the money that we have in our bank accounts. The issue is it can't all just go into one spot. There's a lot of funds that can't be commingled, whether they're federal funds, state funds, or just the way that the chart of accounts is put together by the state. They have to remain separate. So we currently have 3 CDs with Lions Bank. That's where we got the best rates. 3 CDs at 4.85%, 4.65%, and 4.2%. It's a total of $10.85 million that's invested in those CDs from anywhere from 6 to 18 months. And then we, in our master money market, we call it our master account, our money market account. That's where we're keeping the rest of it. So we didn't want to just, throw it all into a CD and not have access to it. We are getting through the bank 4.6%, which is a good rate. It was 5.2, and so we were going to invest in another spot, but we stopped shortly before that was about to happen because we were getting a better rate, keeping our money exactly where it was. So those things are being looked at on a daily basis, working with the bank on that and making sure that we're getting the best rates that we can with the money that we have. A large chunk of why there was more money in the bank accounts is because we bonded for capital projects and they're not finished yet. So we are trying to get interest off of money that we're paying interest on. So it's frustrating from a finance standpoint to have to do that, but I also understand that capital projects take time. So,
Council Levin, then Council Peeler.
Did you call me?
Yep.
is there a way in our monthly, we can get a report on those funds?
Sure. Yeah.
With the return on each?
Yep.
And the total?
Yeah.
That's sort of routinely done
Yeah, I can do that.
from most places. And the other, I don't know, I'm not exactly expert enough to ask, but when we mentioned the towns, the deal with the town and the revenues, it would be interesting to see, and I think it would be educational for the council to know what the people in the town are paying for water and sewer, what the town is subsidizing on their side with the costs of water and sewer. And it came up before is that the town of Seneca dumps some effluent into the town, which then passes it on to us. And I don't see anything reporting from the town what the town of Seneca is paying.
Yeah.
And while they continue to give us odors from their town, tax-free town and dump, I don't think we know enough about what the town of Seneca is benefiting from the water and sewer.
Yeah.
As we get into discussions about the new arrangements, new agreements with the town, some numbers around those things would be useful, I think, for the councils to know.
Yeah. We can look into that and try to gather those things.
Sure.
Just for a little bit of clarity, there is not any leachate going into the town of Seneca line coming to the city of Geneva.
I understand their sewage
Correct.
goes into the town of, and I don't think we even know how many customers are in the town of Seneca that come to us. And that's, as we're starting to talk about these new agreements, I think we should understand that better. That's all.
Councilor Peeler.
Just want to be sure that I heard correctly. We're allowed to invest our loans?
Yeah.
That's great. I just can't believe we're being allowed to do that. It just seems, I mean, for an individual or a for-profit organization, I can understand because it's
Yeah.
their money, but don't we get loans at like certain subsidized rates that are also further subsidized? So now
Well-
we're putting our money back in the private investment sector and then not paying taxes on the returns and then,
Not exactly.
No,
So we
okay.
do, we do get,
I don't know. That's
we
what I
get
wanna know.
good rates on our, when we bond for money for capital projects. It's a very strict system on what you can use it for, the probable period of usefulness, all those things. Plus, there's debt limits. There's certain debt is excluded from the limit to prevent those kinds of things. So it's a short term. It's nice to be able to do that, and also, interest rates aren't always good either. So sometimes the amount of money what we're borrowing at is higher than what we can get on a return. So that's not the case now, which is nice. But there are things in place with the state of New York as far as not being able to take on too much debt based on your fund balances, your budget numbers, things like that. So there's a lot of things in place to prevent that.
It's not a preferred practice. The
Yeah,
preferred
I'm-
practice would be to use it for what we need, but sometimes the projects take longer.
Yeah.
And when you bond, we bond for multiple projects at once. So we
Right.
might get a large portion of it, but we have a little left over, so that's when we invest
All
it.
right. I want to make it clear I don't consider it a preferred practice. I like spending what we borrow and I like spending what we tax because things are cheaper now than they will be in the future.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I have a couple questions. One, when we look at, can you just go back to the water
Yep.
income and the sewer income? I'm just curious on the percentage difference between the two. So
Mhm.
metered sales there is 29%, and if you go to sewer, it's 14, 15.
Yep.
So I always thought, and this is just my personal experience with water sewer charges, they're 50-50. Whatever
Yeah.
you use in water, you get charged in sewer. So I'm wondering why our revenues are that much different between water and sewer.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There's a lot of accounts we have that are just water or just sewer. And typically I'm trying to think of a good example for, I think like Seneca Foods, I think was
Are
one
big
that's,
water
that's
users
just
that
water.
actually meter their
Um,
sewer?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so that happens frequently, and also there's times when a place like I want to call them Zotos, but Henkel will run like their fire meter test, and so that they get a large water bill for that particular quarter. So there's not a ton, but there's enough that makes up a significant difference there, where it's not a 50-50 because there's some accounts that are strictly water and some are strictly sewer.
The other piece too, going back to the question about the towns, you have
Yeah.
2 towns actually purchasing sewer capacity. So you have town of Waterloo and town of Geneva. So you
Yeah.
have multiples also doing that.
My other question, and I'm scratching my head a little bit when you go to sales tax. Actually, no, I'm going to say the state funded income. So state and federal aid, and you see it's coming in late December. So I'm scratching my head a little bit because I know what we're doing now with some of that extra money, call it extra money, and I know what the county's doing. Is the state doing the same thing where they hold off on payments to municipalities and they're leveraging that money throughout the year? Do they invest? And I know I'm
yeah.
asking a crazy question, but I'd love to know the answer because if we're making $400,000 a year and the county's making $8 million a year,
Yeah.
what is the state making off of our
Yeah.
money by holding off on
Yeah.
giving us that funds?
I would assume that's what they're doing. One answer I hate to give is they've always done it that way, where we've always gotten it at the end of the year. Their fiscal year, I believe, ends the end of March, so it's not even the end of their fiscal year, but it's always close to the end of December that we get it. But I have to imagine they're doing the same thing that the rest of us are doing, as
So-
far as investments
I'm
go.
asking the comptroller that, but I'm going to look at the city manager. Is there any way we can find that out? I'm just wondering if we can't leverage our state representatives to give us that money earlier. That's where my brain's at.
That's a. I was going to say that's an interesting question, and we probably could find out some of this.
That's yeah. I
Some of it would be
start
we'd-
with NICOM probably.
Yeah,
and-
it might be a good question for Wade to start, and then they can also give us the signal if maybe this isn't something we want to poke at, but we can look at it.
Councilor Lavin, then Councilor Peeler.
As somebody who runs a pretty large nonprofit now, you can see when the state's having financial worries, they start slow paying
Yes.
on everything. And the reason is because they can then hold that money and reduce on their end what they're going to have to come up with for a deficit. And it's routinely done, and it drives all of us crazy because some of us have had to front money out on grants that they then slow pay back, and it's eroding some of the quality and value of the grant. A lot of nonprofits in this area have credit lines of credit with the local banks just to make up for the state's slow pay on that.
Yeah, on that, the state sometimes will take 2 to 3 years to pay a current year. So that's the other piece.
Yep.
We fortunately don't work a lot with those state agencies, but I look at David because some of our grantors are some of those
Yeah,
agencies.
the grant paybacks are very long.
Yep,
Yeah.
so it could take 2 to 3 years before we see that.
Councilor Peeler.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this because we got a whole agenda. Our water and our sewer are 2 separate budgets, but
Yep.
they're really one facility,
No.
right?
No, they have
No.
to be completely separate entities. So facility is all on one side, and water maintenance is on one side, and sewer maintenance is on another.
So the water we drink doesn't come from our sewer?
No.
That didn't sound right.
No. First of all, it shouldn't sound any problem to someone who knows science. You can pull the water apart and drink it. It's just fine. They do it on the space shuttle.
So
So-
it does all end up with using the lake, but there's 2 different facilities. So there's one facility upstream and one facility. So you have 1 Mile Point, and then you have the one over on.
So it goes into the
Outdoor.
lake, then we pull
Yeah.
it back out of the lake, and then it becomes our drinking water when we pull it back out. All right. So
Yep, and they have to be separate funds.
the reason why I'm asking is because we're separating some of these bills based on just water and just sewer. But we don't meter sewer, correct?
Sewer is metered on the water meter.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they're not water customers, how do we bill them for sewer? If they're not metered.
They have the meter. So they have a water meter, but they're just not, it's a no-bill meter. So it still tracks the.
Still measured.
It still measures it, right.
Who are they getting their water from? Someone else? So we go by someone else's water meter and then generate a
Yep, so
sewer cost?
yeah, so we'll still go read those, like if it's a town of Geneva
I
meter.
understand. I
Yeah,
understand.
we'll go read it.
Because I'm trying to think. I know it sounds devious. I'm trying to get money, right? I'm trying to get money. So it's like if we let these people separate their bills, I feel like we should still be charging a water use fee because they're using the facilities, they're using the infrastructure. In my mind, it's like being a NYSEG customer and not using one electron and not 1 ounce of gas, but you still got to pay your hookup fee. Right, there's no such thing as a zero bill from NYSEG. You're paying money either way because the infrastructure is kind of like your membership fee, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any opportunities there to collect because the infrastructure is still being used.
So I want to be careful with this one because water and
Thank you,
sewer
'cause I
have
probably
to,
wasn't.
water and sewer have to be two separate entities. They have to be two separate funds. And so that's why they are the way they are. If they're a lot of times, some of these places may also use some water, but not at the rate that they're using the sewer. So they're still being monitored in that, or vice versa. So it's if they're a city customer, they're probably having both a water and sewer,
Right.
but there's a more capacity on one side, and so that's the piece. But they have to be separated, and that's why the financials have to be separated. Even things like my time has to be separated, overseeing those and all of that.
Thank
Adam,
you.
One follow-up question.
Yeah.
You are not in possession of names and addresses of town properties that are on the water and sewer for the city, right? You have one account with the town, they take care of everything else?
There are a few, so there's a few accounts that we have that are town accounts for just water.
That come directly for you?
They'll come directly to us, but then the sewer is through the town.
So we don't have the full number of customers they have on water and
Correct,
sewer.
correct.
We just have a bulk. So as we go into new negotiations over thing, they have the addresses.
Yeah, we have
They
the
have the
lumps. We can look at the lump sum, but
Yeah.
not
But-
the.
But are you in a
individual.
position, if we ended up deciding that we actually want to know who in the town and how many people in the town, so when they add 139 new houses along Carter Road, we have some sense of how much, not just how much they're using, but how many users there
Yeah.
are?
So in the past, when I was here before, the city and town did share a lot of that information. We would share, okay, here's basically all our readings, you share all yours. I don't see why that would be a problem.
It's possible to do
But
that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
possible to do that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the report.
Yep, thank you.
Next on the agenda is a supervisor update, but I don't see any supervisors available, so I'm going to move on to consideration of meeting minutes, and I'm going to suggest that we take the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings in a lump sum unless somebody has any disagreement with that. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from September 16th, October 2nd, October 9th, October 16th, and October 23rd. And I'd like a second for that.
Second.
Counselor Petropoulos. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we have public comment, and I don't have anybody signed up, but I'm looking in the audience. Ann, you would like, please come to the podium.
Okay, you can hear me.
Yes, Ann.
All right. I'm here, first I want to say that as part of the Green Committee, we have been trying to get council to spend some money on the park. the downtown park, and I was very disappointed that that money was cut. And at the same time that you're choosing to spend money from the fund balance to redo the comprehensive plan, which it seems when you look at priorities with all the problems with storm sewers, and there are a lot of serious problems in the city, and I don't think that's a very wise, as a Green Committee person, way to go about it. But, okay, so I'm actually here to talk to you about the Ontario County landfill. So I went to the informational meeting that was held at the town hall, and that was quite informative. But I think the thing that was most informative for me was the question and answer session afterwards, which was very revealing. So I think it's really important for this city to pay attention to what's going on with the landfill. And I want to just briefly give you my takeaway from that meeting, and especially from what the consultant had to say in response to questions. So first, I think he presented basically 5 options. The first would be to do nothing, just let the landfill keep going. Well, the landfill has 10 years before it's just going to run out of space. And at that point, the county is going to have to spend a lot of money on attorney fees, consultants, studies, everything all over again. So that, I think, is not very viable. Second, you could allow Casella to expand. He projected that that permitting process is expensive, and it's going to take at least 3 years. And I wonder if there's really public support for expanding that landfill. The third option was reducing what the landfill takes by half. And then the fourth option was to stop taking anything from outside of Ontario County. So currently, the landfill takes 700,000 tons per year. If you just limited it to Ontario County, that would be 170,000 tons per year. So that sounds like a good option, doesn't it? But I caution you to go that route. The fifth option is to close. So Casella, with his current contract with the county, is obligated to maintain that site for the next 30 years. And he explained that it basically takes 30 years for a landfill to dry out and become inert. So that's the time that Casella needs to take care of that landfill while it's being closed. The problem is if you go to reducing the amount of trash that goes into the landfill, then Casella could easily renegotiate that closure agreement. And it gets very complicated because you've got part of the landfill closed, part of the landfill still operating. How's that going to work with Casella? Are they willing to, go for 30 years with part of it and then another 25 or 30 years for the part that's operating? So that was, I thought, a really interesting point that the consultant made in answer to a question. So the last option is closing. And that's going to raise rates in the city by a very great deal. It depends in part on what happens with Seneca Meadows, because that's someplace we could take trash, and it's close by. But he talked about some options, and one of them was creating transfer stations and also heavily investing in recycling. He said that the county's materials recycling facility, the MRF, is one of the largest in the area, and it's actually has the potential to bring in a lot of business. So that is a direction that the county could go. Yes, that's what he said. I actually have statistics for that in my paper over there, and I'll show them to you. But you have invested a couple of $100,000 already in a resource recovery facility here in the city that could serve as a transfer station and address those higher rates that you're going to be facing when if the landfill closed. So I think you should look carefully at what the county is considering. You should be preparing yourself for this, whatever they're going to do, and representing your citizens and their interests in your say. You have a say. You can make a statement. You can take a stand, as the town of Seneca did. They urged closing. So that's my point. And thank you. If you have some questions, I have some of my notes here. Any questions?
It's just public comment, Ann. There's no back and forth. If anybody has
okay.
questions, they can
Sorry.
ask them
Yep,
afterwards.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the city manager report.
All right. So just a few brief items tonight. I'm actually going to start. We talked a little bit about our water and sewer, and NYSEG came up. NYSEG is in the process of putting forward smart meter installations in our area. They've prepared a presentation that I can have available for any community members that would like to do it. They are planning to do an open house in the community. It has not been set to my knowledge at this point, but that is something that community members should be ready for because they'll be coming into homes to install those smart meters. Finger Lakes Railroad, Director Venuti is continuing to reach out and work with Finger Lakes Railroad regarding some of the failed crossings and potholes on their property. We've already had a few remedies locally, and we're going to continue to work with the regional and federal representatives at Finger Lakes Railroad. I know that concern has come up a couple times. Water bills, going back to sewer and water, water bills are due Friday, November 15th. That's an important deadline because the bills that are unpaid become re-levied onto the 2025 tax bills. So please remind each other that your water bill is due on Friday, November 15th. Fall yard and debris and leaf pickup schedule. So it began on October 21st. We started with the yard debris and leaf pickup schedules. It will end on Friday, December 6th. After that, collection will be weather permitting with no set schedule. For everyone that's doing this, please put your yard debris and leaves between the sidewalk and behind the curve. Don't block the storm drain units and put all leaves and other suitable debris in paper bags. We will not pick up plastic bags, and there are paper leaf bags available here at the clerk's office on the first floor of City Hall during our normal business hours. Also, people can bring yard debris to the Resource Recovery Park at 41 Doran Avenue, Wednesday from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Saturday 8 to noon. We also still have a limited amount of free mulch there for residents. And then finally, there will be 2 to 3 upcoming work sessions for council. at the end of this month and beginning of next month. Those work sessions, one will be focused on storm task force recommendations. So that committee has working on putting all of their recommendations together so council can review those. Committee formation. We also will discuss briefly the economic development strategy that has been worked on, and then 2025 and beyond strategic thinking with the department heads and council, as mentioned earlier. So I know that I'm working with the Clerk Tillison to put those special meetings dates, and then working with staff to try to coordinate all of the staff and council calendars for November and December, which is a little challenging, but we will find a way to get it done.
Never a dull moment.
No.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Our first resolution is authorizing a public hearing for a local law amending sewer rates presented by our city comptroller.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as a part of the budget process, City Council has to adopt the water rates and the sewer rates separately. The water portion is a local, or I'm sorry, the sewer portion is a local law. The water portion is an ordinance, which we will get to next. Tonight is the first step, just establishing a public hearing for the December meeting.
Need a motion? Counselor Gilat, seconded by Counselor Petropoulos. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is the first reading of an ordinance amending Section 341 of the Geneva Municipal Code, Waters and Sewers, presented by our city comptroller.
Thank you. So as I just mentioned, the water rates are approved by ordinance. We will read it twice, and tonight is the first one. Rates, I believe, are an increase of 1.5% as approved in the budget. First reading tonight, second reading in December.
Need a motion?
Motion.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Gilat. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco? Absent. Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is a resolution to set a public hearing for adoption of a local law reducing the number of members of the planning board from 9 to 7, presented by our city clerk.
This is legislation that was approved last year, and due to a clerical error during the transition of clerks last year in 2023, the law wasn't filed with the Department of State, so we're just correcting that error, moving through the process now.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Gilat. Discussion. Counselor Brennan?
Why 7? How about reducing it to 5?
So you can do that. You have to, 7 is the maximum number. That's why we had to go below 9. And that was brought to us by legal that we needed to go down to at least 7. I don't know. I think they're looking right now to see if we can do 5.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Counselor Gilat, while they're looking, do you want to comment? Oh, I thought your hand was up.
Can
Is
you
it
go-
possible to go to 5?
Yes.
So my compliments to the city clerk for kind of bringing this back up, and it's been something I believe we haven't paid attention to for years, and it has been a challenge. So this is a resolution to set a public hearing. Do we want to, I mean, and I don't know procedurally wise whether legal or city manager wants to direct us, what if we wanted to go to 5? What would we need to do? Modify the public hearing, or?
You just readopt or adopt a new local law. I'd probably want it to revoke any or rescind any prior action that you took referring to last year, so you clean the slate, and then set up a new public hearing local law, setting it to 5.
Counselor Peeler.
I have a question about quorum when the group is 5. Doesn't quorum mean there has to be 4 or more?
Well, you'd probably want to revisit that as part of your charter in terms of
Right.
what constitutes a quorum. I mean, usually when you have 5, 3 is the number,
3 is a
but that's really kind of.
this came up before in other meetings, and legal did take a look at it, and there was a strange New York factoid that we had to have a certain minimum amount of people to move something forward or to approve it, and it was not only based on the number of people there, but also something else that was part of the calculus of what a quorum was needed. So I get concerned because we'll need more people to be sitting with absentees at 5 than we will 7. Do you understand kind of what I mean? Like, you could have
Yeah.
2 people absent with 7 and still move things along. If you have 2 people absent with 5, it might be restrictive.
Yeah, that's something I can revisit.
I just want to confirm, yeah, because I'm not opposed to either. I'm opposed to making it more right-sized, or I'm not opposed. I'm for making it more right-sized, but I also don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by making it so small that it becomes dysfunctional, because we're trying to make it functional, right, or more functional, or more efficient.
Counselor Brennan, did you have more?
I don't have more, but I'd like to know how to proceed with investigating this.
I think at this point, and I see the city manager taking a deep breath, we kind of move forward with validating the 7 and then coming back and having further discussions. And I even look at the zoning board in the same context
Me
also.
too.
Me too.
Actually, the city manager would say you might want to just table this for now.
Yeah, there's no if the sentiment here is that 5 is the preferred direction, that there's really no sense in moving forward with this right now, because you're just sort of spinning it to come back again, to reduce it again to 5 at this point.
Okay.
I could probably have an answer for you for the next meeting anyway, so you're not really losing much time.
Great. So can we entertain a motion to table?
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
Counselor Brennan, seconded by Counselor Grimaldi. No discussion on a table motion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye?
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion tabled.
Resolution setting a public hearing on a zoning map amendment to increase CB5, presented by our director, David West.
You're not presenting anything here, right?
No. Well, I can if we want to put the map up, but, good evening. So we had a previous conversation. We looked at a map, we looked at pictures of buildings in a previous meeting. And the direction to me was to come back with staff recommendation of which parcels we would want to upzone to CB5 that allows more development. I provided in your packet this week a map that's my suggestion of all the parcels that I think would be great to capture more development potential. The first step in moving that forward would be having a public hearing. This is also an opportunity if we discussed parcels that I thought would be a good idea last time. You asked me to come forward with what they are. If you don't like that, it's the time to talk about it. But it can also obviously be amended at the next meeting when we would have the public hearing and the first reading.
So I need a motion for the public hearing.
I make a motion.
Counselor Brennan, seconded by Counselor Gilat. Discussion. Counselor Petropoulos.
Seeing as this affects Ward 5, basically, maybe a slice of Ward 1, but if hypothetically we have the public hearing, is this going to get gundacked and voted on? Or, because I can't help being just a bit skeptical. I'm not sure, even after your presentation, what's going to go up and what it's going to look like. Concept drawings are definitely something personally I'd like to see. Again, if we're just going to throw buildings up willy-nilly and they look ugly, I can't agree with that. However, if we take our time with moving forward with this and we don't just vote yay without knowing what we're getting into, I just want to bring that up because I want to make sure that this isn't just passed through, without any thought put forward to what it might look like. And that way, 10 years from now, people won't complain.
So I'm going to jump in real quick because, and I appreciate that. This is just for the public hearing. I
Right.
imagine we're going to get a lot of public input. And I think, two things that come to mind real quick is there's a lot of other zoning requirements, and TUD even is implemented in here, in this area. So I definitely understand what you're hearing, saying the challenges with meeting the requirements are not just CB5, but CB5 with all the other entities and the TUD. So there's limitations to what can be done and what can't be done. And I think for me, I appreciate your efforts, David. For me, the CB5, when we look at limited land use in the city of Geneva, it gives us options to build up and increase that density, where you see that in larger cities. We can't build out because we are limited in our ability to build out. This gives us options to kind of increase tax revenues and economic development by going to CB5. So I'm interested in hearing all the public comments. I think that's going to be very important.
And if I might,
Please.
Approving this zoning wouldn't approve any particular building. Any building would go through a planning board process, site plan review. So we're not talking about approving any particular design, one look over another. We're just talking about changing from one zone to another, which would allow buildings on those parcels to be a little taller if they make it through the planning board process.
No further discussion. Clerk, please call the roll on setting the public hearing.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next resolution is supporting the 2024 Restore New York Round 9 application and set a public hearing presented by our Director of Economic Development.
So I think we've spoken about this a little bit before. We did 2 Restore New York 8 applications earlier this year. These applications are usually in the spring. We got a bonus round this year. Round 9 is a fall round. I decided to move forward with one of the most shovel-ready projects in our unfunded Restore 8 application, and that's the DeSales school conversion project. I think it's the project that we have that's most likely to be funded, and we've been having some great discussions with the state about it. The next step in this process is having a public hearing. The application is due in December, so we'd like to set that public hearing for the early meeting in December so that we'll be ready to get the application in. We're actually planning on having it in really early so we can get more feedback from the state. We want this to be as much of their application as it is ours, really. So the steps that you can take today are going to schedule that public hearing and also express support for the application.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make that
Councilor
motion.
Grimaldi, seconded by Councilor Peeler. Discussion. Councilor Peeler.
I like this. You have my support on this. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, David, this fits into the overall county housing surveys we've done. It kind of matches up with where we want to go with housing, and particularly with the senior deficiencies we have in senior housing. Is that kind of where this leads to?
So I think that this product would be a great one for attracting seniors. It's not proposed to be senior specific. It's a market rate, kind of high level, large 2-bedroom apartments. So that's definitely filling a niche that we don't have a lot of now. And I think it's in a great walkable location. I think it's going to be a good contributor. It implements our comprehensive plan. It addresses a need that we have at the county level. And it's also going to be a great taxable property to add to our rolls.
Great, thank you. Councilor Grimaldi.
Is this gonna limit that housing to a certain income range, or is it, it's
Nope.
just open to anybody that
It's
wants to
market
pay
rate.
market rate?
Yep.
Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco, oh, sorry, he's absent, Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
motion carried.
The last resolution is a resolution to adopt the Ontario County Hazard Mitigation Action Plan presented by our city manager.
So Ontario County has prepared a hazard mitigation plan. This is something that they have to do in partnership with Department of DISHES. I can't remember all of the acronym there. It's Emergency Services. And then it's reviewed by FEMA, the federal agency. So each participating municipality, because it's a county plan, has to adopt this plan. Our staff participated, community members, they held open meetings, and we provided the plan prior to this so that anyone that wanted to review it could review it. And we're the final municipality, so I know Nicole has been getting reminders that we need to get this adopted.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Grimaldi. Any discussion?
Don't we have our own plan? We always used to.
We have our own in addition to this, and we supplement this plan with that. Yes.
Clerk,
me.
please. Oh, Counselor Peeler.
There's no financial impact to this whatsoever.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
motion carried.
Next, appointments to boards and commissions. I did see one. Counselor Peeler or Counselor?
Yes, I have one for the IDA. And it would be Lowell
Dewey.
Dewey for the IDA. I'd like to make a motion to, I believe it's a reappointment, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. Yeah.
Second by Counselor Peeler. Discussion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
motion carried.
Great. Anything else there? Good. Okay, next, Mayor and Council reports. I'm going to start at my left with Counselor Whitfield and go around the horn. Counselor Whitfield.
I have none. Well, I do want to say that we have a success meeting on the 13th. All are welcome. It's the fall harvest meeting. We're asking for all people throughout the community to attend. That's it.
Where is that?
Oh, it's at Club 86. I think we're starting around 3:30. And it ends around 5 o'clock.
Will there be something on our website about that?
I think we've shared it on social media
Yeah.
and in our updates. It's a partnership between the Success and Geneva 2030.
Yeah.
Did you see it was the 19th?
13th.
13th.
The 13th.
Next Wednesday.
Great. Thank you. Counselor Petropoulos.
So we're going all the way around. Not too much, but we do have a few things. The LDC today, we have 3 Hobart interns that will be helping with marketing the LDC. They just came on board today. The first order of business is to design a logo for the LDC, so that's going to be an ongoing thing. The Geneva 2030 event that Councilor Whitfield just mentioned is something that was also brought up. That will be the hors d'oeuvres hour starts at 2:30. It's going to be at Club 86. That's Wednesday the 13th. It's been said that the tunnel, the Bizzuto Center tunnel, that's been delayed because they found lead in the paint, so they have to go through whatever mitigation, but it's just going to add a little bit of time to that. Otherwise, underway project. Let's see. There will be an event, I can't remember what it is, but it's an LDC event that will be held at the Bizzuto Center. When was that? Director West, can you tell me what the date on that was again? Yeah, but 18th, that's right. Yes, it's right here. Sorry. Yes, on November 18th, it's going to be from 6:30 to 8. It's at the Bizzuto Center. So we'll put that out. As far as what's going on in Ward 5, the Halloween parade was well attended, fun to watch. I heard the band go by, went right to my window, and saw all the kids in their costumes. It was really cool. I hope we keep that up, especially since we're in the post-COVID era. I see it bigger than it was last year. Let's see, 10 a.m., Monday, Veterans Day. The Geneva Arc Masonic Lodge, of which I'm master, will be dedicating the Veterans Talking Bench, which basically is part of the Battle Within program addressing veteran suicide prevention. The idea is that if somebody sees somebody sitting on the bench, somebody like me, I'll go and talk to them. We don't know. Anyone can use the bench, obviously, but that's the point behind it. The LDC contributed the cement for that. I know Assemblyman Gallahan will be present. I've put out reminders to council. I hope you guys can make it. It'll be a short, everyone's invited. It's going to be a short dedication, probably only 30 minutes. It'll be at the lakefront by the long pier where the bench is located. What else? Let's see. Oh, the street lights on Castle Street, possibly on Main too. I haven't checked Main. But they were out for a while, and this was brought to my attention, so I inquired. And it was last weekend, actually, I happened to stop by and watch the contractors. The problem was not the fixtures themselves, but the wire underneath was broken. At this point, the lights are back on, so I'm pleased to report that. We do have a three-way town hall meeting for wards 4, 5, and 6 on, when is it, Saturday, the 16th of November at the Reading Room at the Public Library from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. I know, Councilor Brennan, you were going to come, but maybe you can't now. And Councilor Whitfield, of course, you're invited. We are going to run it as per legal's advice, as if it were an open meeting. So we will open and close the meeting in case other councilors and or other city staff show up. But all are welcome. There will be free coffee and donuts like last time while they last. And I think with that, I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Gillette.
Thank you. Police Budget Review Board met last week. Conversations circled around the revised budget for the police department, human services, social worker issues, as well as we discussed a little more detail as far as some of the fleet issues that the department's having. The feeling with the committee is to keep involved with the budget for 2025, assist the department as best as we can as far as suggestions we have as he's struggling through the budget process, but also to have more discussion and hopefully maybe some county help on human services and try to get that, roll that into the normal procedures with police department. Good meeting, and I think we can do some stuff there. So the other board is a bid. Conversation was pretty much just business as normal, with the exception of two people in the room getting beat up a little bit because of the budget. It's kind of off topic. Of course, the other person in the room didn't defend us too much, so I don't know about. I didn't talk to him yet about that, but only kidding. Anyway, so it was business as normal. Wasn't much going on there, but I did meet with Kat separately just to see how things are going, and she's in the middle of coming up with trying to be more innovative with their budget and try to close some gaps with maybe some grants and that type of thing. So I think they're in the right spot. They have a lot of decisions to make. I'll keep you abreast as we roll into 2025. And that's all I got.
Councilor Grimaldi.
Housing Authority is doing good, so their meeting went nice and smooth this month. I do have one thing that the Castle Street residents have been asking me about, and that is the Medias building, because we have put a sign on it saying it's non-occupiable and even the firemen should not go in it, and we really need to knock it down, because that means it's unsafe. Some kid will get in there and the place will collapse, and the city will be spending a lot more money on lawyers. But, so I think we need to look into that. Otherwise, I'm good.
Counselor Peeler.
Thank you. I don't have a report for the planning board. They did not meet last cycle, but I do have a couple just really heartfelt thank yous. Thanks to the folks in the recreation department for the successful pumpkin roll for the Halloween parade. And thanks for the residents and all of our first responders, including our GPD, who kept the streets safe on the beautiful Halloween night where we had pretty much everyone going berserk for 2 hours, and it was awesome. There's more candy at my house than there should legally be allowed. I also want to thank the folks. I had the pleasure to attend 2 fundraiser dinners this month, and I want to thank the folks at the Child Advocacy Center of the Finger Lakes. They raised a bunch of money, and it was wonderful to see how those people came together to support, preventing, child abuse. And so all the staff at the Child Advocacy Center, great job. I want to thank Ray Cingolini and his Second Impact group. I was able to go to the dinner for the Second Impact fundraiser for our first responders, and that was a wonderful experience. I had a time to really talk on a personal level with Officer Bielowitz, and he's a great guy. Was able to. So I think it's important that we hold on to the talent in our police department, because these are great guys. These are great dads. I just want to say to Officer Bielowitz, I'm not sorry for beating you in the auction. and that fire pit is wonderful. I'm not sorry. And that's really it. I just wanted to make sure I laid down those thank yous, and it was great to see the community come out, because that sends a strong message to the people in our community that we support our first responders, and more importantly, that we really don't want crime in our community. We don't want people to hurt people and take their stuff, and that's just not what we want. And Mr. Mayor, I'll let you talk about the tree lighting. I was going to bring that up.
Okay.
Yep.
You can bring it up too.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Steal my thunder. Go ahead.
No, thank you.
Counselor Lavin.
Thanks. And I just wanted to say in response to your discussion here that I think that Geneva is in a unique position in the middle, not just of the town of Seneca one that's Ontario County, but the one in Waterloo that could, in Seneca Falls, that could grow another 70 feet if things don't happen. And I'm doing some preliminary checking myself to see if some of the communities like Geneva, the town of Geneva, Waterloo, that are ancillary to these things but are not participating in the largesse that comes, I think Seneca Falls has basically been bought off, and the town of Seneca, I give them great credit for voting to close it, but they are still receiving an enormous amount of money that takes the place of their town taxes. And while the damage being done to the region is to Geneva as well as town of Seneca, and I think that it might be time to get some of these other ancillary municipalities to get together and build a war fund, so that if they're going to try and take money from these garbage people for years, they're going to start having to fight us for a piece of the action if that's what it takes to make it less of a lucrative operation for some of these towns. So I think there are things we can do. We have to be more aggressive about putting ourselves in a position of using our good attorneys, and perhaps paid for by a wider group of municipalities. That if we're going to be bought off as a region, then everybody who's impacted by those things need to. And I appreciate the attention and that you're giving to it. Ken Camera, the former council member, is very aggressive. I also think on the railroad, and I think maybe this is an IDA thing, and I'll just ask it, that the railroad gets an enormous tax write-off every year. They don't pay anything close to the taxes that would be on the land they have. And I don't know, and I'm not familiar, and I'd like to know if how much scrutiny they get. People come into town and ask for a pilot, and the entire town goes crazy when they're doing new development and new investment. The railroad has sat there since the 1800s, and increasingly or decreasingly, it's the number of trains, the number of jobs that it's supporting. I have been going down, and I don't know who scrutinizes the numbers from that to say what's the public worth of some of the tax exemptions that we give here. I know there's state laws involved, it's complex, but I think that we can be more aggressive with them as well, on including their use of weed killers right along the railroad, right through the city, that in ways that we would never do as a community. So I appreciate your attention for that, and I will work with the brains in our operation here who might be able to help us put a little bit more. I also have the same question about the increasing number of churches that are essentially moribund now. They don't have much of their original reasons for being tax exempt. I don't even know if some of them are having Sunday services anymore, but they sit there not on the tax rolls, and I think that's another thing that we can be looking at in terms of being more aggressive with the spending. If they're not operating as a church, why should they still get the tax exemption that you're all paying for as well? So I appreciate your efforts and wish there were many more of you at that podium every month doing it. But thank you.
Councilor Brennan.
3 quick reports, 1 question and then 1 informational piece for everyone. Tom Burrell contributed $375 in the month of, he did it again. That puts him over the $12,500 mark that he's donated. It's kind of hard to believe, really. The Shade Tree Committee did meet this past month, and the good news about that is that they are coordinating with Mr. Venuti, and they're going to be planting 50 to 60 trees before the snow flies. It's a lot of work, believe it or not, to get that done, but a lot of coordination among a lot of people, but that's going to happen. The Historic District Commission didn't meet formally, but we were doing a lot of emails all around town about this matter or that matter. One of the things is that 5 Genesee Park, which is a church owned by the Gramling family, has been recently painted for the better. It's a big improvement, and it's a big job too, so I congratulate them for getting that done. And a question for Ms. Hendricks. Speaking of landfills, I don't know where we're at. Is this city declared an interested party at some level?
For which one?
For the Ontario County landfill?
I believe so, but that was before my time.
Okay.
Because I still get the information on that. The Seneca Falls you did last year or the year before. So I just want to be clear on what interested party means.
Thank you.
It sounds like it means...
Because I'm not sure what the ramifications really are.
Unfortunately, what Councillor Lavin just said, it doesn't mean a lot. It means we get notices when they have public meetings or deadlines. Now, if you wanted to do resolutions or things like that, declaring kind of this council's opinions on those landfills, we can do that, and we've done that in the past as well, on them saying, we support the closure or we support any of those other conversations that came forward tonight. But as far as that interested party, when I get that information, I'm happy to send it out to you. But it doesn't really mean that you really have as much investment as I think people think. It means that you're knowledgeable on what is coming next. And I'll share that with all of you when I get those notices. And then if there's some kind of action you want to take as a body on those notices, we can do that.
Thank you. Lastly, and speaking of Lowell Dewey and speed limits and parking and things like that, Lowell has spearheaded a small effort to, at the moment, a small effort to reduce the speed limit on South Main Street to 25 miles per hour. He's discovered that that is allowable by this city to do that, and he's coordinating that with Joe Venuti as we speak. And no, there won't be any overnight changes right away, but it's going to take some time, and that's the effort. It's partly in the interest of all of these matters we've talked about, including mostly public safety. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight, I missed what I would consider a fairly important meeting. It was held at our Welcome Center, and it had to do with the steering committee doing a public meeting for an Ontario County Rail Corridor. So there's a lot of activity going on there. I think we're getting close to the conclusion. There was another public meeting that's going to be held. But, the overall goal is, what do we do with the rail corridor? How do we improve rail access to sites that might create economic development? And how do we reduce rail access to areas that are safety issues, particularly in the city of Geneva, the one that goes across Exchange Street and then down across State Street. And we're also talking about the rail yard that's basically on our lakefront on 5 and 20. So it won't drive any changes, but it will drive recommendations, and those recommendations will hopefully bring to our state and federal officials to try to drive some changes there. There's large dollar values in moving any of the railroad tracks, but I think there's really good reasons on why we should remove some railroad tracks, and why we should add some other railroad tracks that would create more economic development opportunities. The mayor's tree lighting ceremony is December 6th, the first Friday in December, and I'm looking forward to as many people that want to come out. We'll have another meeting before then, so I will announce it again at that time, but it's at 5:30, and it's always a great event, and I love the children lighting up, the opportunity just to be there and enjoy the events. The BID will support some different efforts with, I believe, hot chocolate and popcorn. We'll have Santa that'll be showing up again, so it's always a welcome event. And then that Friday night, there's some great activities that happen throughout our downtown, so that'll be welcome. I want to kind of tag along with the Shields of Honor event. It was amazing. I want to thank everybody on council and staff that was able to attend. There was some great representatives there. Ray Cingolini and his staff do a great job. The whole event drives funding to be able to support our first responders in ways that our community can't fully support. So it's a great addition to a funding resource that gives them the resources they need to be able to do their daily activities. And it's just amazing for me, you know, making a choice to be in the field of first responders is a life commitment, and it's amazing the people that do that. So I really respect that and appreciate that. Shared services, our city manager does an excellent job at providing input and providing updates to this council. A very thorough response, and I see shared services is on there. I just want to remind everybody that shared services is not anything new by any means. Shared services is something I've talked about well over 20 years on this council. I've been on shared services committees with the town of Geneva. I've worked with the county. We do a lot of shared services currently that go unknown or unsaid, and I'm glad that we're going to kind of expand upon that. So I'm looking forward to the city manager meeting with other municipalities and kind of expanding on that as much as possible. Shared services are important. They create efficiencies. They're not easy to accomplish sometimes because you talk about equipment and you talk about resources and labor and how you share that and how you get some kind of level of equity back and forth between the municipalities when you do that. I think those are important. So I'm glad those activities are not only have been taking place but are going to be expanded upon. So thank you very much. That's all I have, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Brennan, second by Councilor Peeler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.